Your foreign policy is the foreign policy of Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama.
Oh, absolutely.
And it doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm a big leftist. This is so silly. I'm Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama. Okay. Let me just say one last thing.
So how is your foreign policy different from Jimmy Carter's?
Please.
But I asked that question seriously.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Jimmy Carter?
So
what century is this? I am the product of the last 25 years, watching carefully, being involved in the periphery, and I see an unending string of foreign policy disasters that have impoverished and hurt our country.
Unending string.
Unending string. They would include Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, and our inability to stop the Houthis, by the way, in Yemen, which exposes us as weak, and I grieve over that. So these are failures. You helped preside over some of them as a member of the Senate.
What failures, foreign policy failures, have I presided over?
Well, we were unable to beat Russia in the war that you supported against Russia. You've been spending the last 3 years telling us that Vladimir Putin is evil and we're going to beat him with other people's children, and 1 million of those kids are now dead. You've never apologized for that. That was a full failure.
By the way,
what's up, Solutionaries? Maj Toure here. Subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/Maj Toure. That is Tucker Carlson in his most recent interview with Senator Ted Cruz. The whole time he was Clubber Lang beating the shit out of Ted Cruz on this. And at first, if you haven't watched the interview, I think I'm going to do a few clips on this, but if you haven't watched the interview, go watch it in full first, okay? It is a masterclass of somebody being outclassed, and in this instance, Ted Cruz is 1,000% outclassed by Tucker. It's just what it is. I mean, I know there's people that they love Trump and they want to just support him in any way, shape, or form possible, but if you're being objective in any way, this entire interview, Tucker Carlson beat the shit out of dude. And I always try to watch things in full before I give my perspective on them, because clips can be nefarious. Y'all know how the media do. They can clip out one part, leave context out, but again, go watch it yourself. But in this instance, that's not the case. He just got his ass whipped because he's standing on foreign policy that is in no way, shape, or form beneficial to Americans. And in that clip right there, it kind of sums it up about how the United States government, with their own financial, military, industrial complex interests, the United States government's been behind some goofy shit while Americans have suffered. He went through Libya. He went through Yemen. He went through Syria. Mind you, these are places that the United States government said repeatedly, we're not in Syria. We're not in Yemen. We don't have actual boots on the ground. No, you may not have a whole full army over there, but you definitely have been in Yemen, Libya. I mean, come on. We have literally Hillary Clinton got on television and laughed about them killing Gaddafi. Now, regardless of where you land on the media propaganda with Gaddafi and all of that, and he was an evil dude, and that's always the argument. They're evil, we got to go in and do what we got to do. The overall point to push back against the propaganda, because this is where it gets hairy. They'll say somebody's evil, they'll say that they've done things, hiding their own hands and or involvement and or installment of that person, right? Not necessarily Gaddafi, but just saying in general, right? And then after that person no longer serves the interests, they'll say this person is doing all of this evil shit, acting as if they had nothing to do with it, and it's now our job to bring democracy to them. And this overall point here was, I'm seeing this unending string of American involvement in situations that not only don't improve the life of Americans, but on top of that, when we topple whatever regime that we may or may not have installed, right after that, that place becomes even worse. Looking at you, Syria. Why is this important for us to talk about? Because I don't give a fuck about another country outside of our trade with that country and or if that country impacts American lives or property negatively. I do not give a fuck. I don't. And I think more people need to be honest about that, because if we stop trying to pretend like we got to give a fuck in spaces where we shouldn't be giving a fuck, we could focus on things that we should be giving a fuck about. And I think that as more and more people are saying, hey, this starts to look like Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, insert the other list of names, right? We have soldiers that lost friends and brothers in combat in those places. We saw Sean Ryan saying, I fought in too many fake wars. I think I'll sit this one out. We're talking about boots on the ground guys that live with the impact and choices of politicians. Too many people in America are going, absolutely not. And we see in the neocon machine, the military industrial complexes bitches, turn up and go, we need to do this because it's for the good of America. And the simple question becomes, okay, for the good of America in what way? So it's important for us to understand that, not because we give too much of a fuck about other countries, but more along the lines of this is impacting us negatively, and unintended consequence or intended consequence, those nations get trampled and tossed and led by absolute fucking warlords after that. Now, again, I am a fan of, I don't give a fuck. But it can have an impact when it relates to boots on the ground, because every time they say, we're not going to put boots on the ground. That's what they said about the Israel-Iran situation. We're going to just get behind them. We're going to support them because they're our ally. And I understand being in alignment with your alliances. However, how does this help us? Alliances are supposed to be mutually beneficial. If you're dating somebody and all they doing is whining and complaining and not helping you bring your vision into fruition, your ideas, your liberation, your economic strengthening, why the fuck are you with them? That's not an alliance. That's a parasitic relationship. That's an energy vampire. And I think this is what Tucker's trying to say here, and a lot of Americans are saying this. So if you from any hood, and when I say hood, I don't just mean urban America. If you don't live in a gated community, $1 million home, you live in a hood. Urban, suburban, rural, doesn't matter. When we're talking about the price of groceries, when we're talking about the lack of infrastructure or horrible and decaying infrastructure in America, roads that you're going to have to drive over, bridges you're going to have to drive over, right? When we're talking about that being decaying, and we spending however much money in other nations, this is a question that starts to impact us, because that 3 trillion, little quick 5 billion, whatever numbers that they calling small, you know how many homeless people homeless vets, we could solve that homeless situation for them with that little $3 billion. See, they throw these numbers and these zeros like it's nothing because it ain't they fucking money. They didn't have to generate the bread. They didn't have to be responsible for the bread. They don't have any brand attachment. They have an unending string, to use Tucker's words, an unending string of money, because they just fire up the money printers, get Americans to get behind it, by using these terms. These are bad guys, these are this, or they'll try to shame you. He tried to shame Tucker in that scenario right there, and Tucker is a distinguished journalist. Distinguished. 20 years, 30 years, however fucking long he's been doing it, right? He has a relationship with Ted Cruz, but even in that interview, he tried to low-key call him an anti-Semite. He said, you like Barack Obama, you like X, Y, and Z, all because he's asking the question of, what the fuck does this have to do with Americans? Solutionaries. Make sure that when people are trying to shame you for shit that you like, nah, I just don't want to be a part of that. When somebody says to me, yo, you don't want to go over there, Maj, you strapped, you tough. No, if it's a fight over there and there's a potential for a fight, why the fuck am I going over there? So what if I'm armed? I win 100% of the fights that I'm not a part of. So when somebody tries to do that to you, and they try to use shame or they try to belittle you, please be well informed and then destroy their arguments right to their fucking face, as Tucker did here in this particular clip. And this is the reason why we talk about critical thinking. We have a private community of people to toss ideas around, not judgmentally, but to toss those ideas back and forth in our private group in the Solutionary 9, so people can sharpen their perspective, as well as you get access to civics classes. All of these wars or proxy wars or alliances that we send in hoods across America to go die for, because that's what's happening. If we understood civics, we would be more vocal about going, not only are we not going to war with 2/3 of Congress voting to go to war, we also going to primary or fire any fucking politician that's saying we have a moral obligation to be the world's police. But if you don't understand civics, you don't understand why that's important. You don't understand how they're trying to get around congressional votes to go to war by saying, oh, we just humanitarian effort, oh, we just helping our allies, so forth and so on. This is the reason why you have to be informed, and this is the reason why we created all of these classes and curriculums in the Solutionary 9. Hit the link below if you want to be informed. If you also want to learn about personal protection and firearms basics and ownership from a safe and responsible direction. If you also want to get in shape, meal plans, workout routines, shooting drills, again, that private community, this is why we made it. They pull this shit over on people because A, the people are ignorant, B, the people are out of shape, mentally fogged, can't think straight, don't think critically, and by and large, the media is purchased so they can promote this argument that, yes, they're the bad guys, and since we say they're the bad guys, we should go over there and extend some democracy to them. Hit the link below, learn, defend your mind against the bullshit and the propaganda. That's what we're here to serve you for. My name is Maj Toure, the founder of Solutionary University. Hope to see you guys in the class, and remember to subscribe to the channel. A lot of y'all watching aren't subscribed. Hit like, share it all over the place, and support the work. Be safe, be solutionary.